Queen Camilla, the woman who once stood in the shadow of a global icon, was reportedly left in tears. And the reason? Prince William, the future king, the son of the people's princess, stood up in public and delivered a defense of Diana's legacy so direct, so unflinching, that it sent shockwaves through the palace walls. This is not rumor. This is not soft palace gossip. This is a moment the past collided with the present in the most personal way possible. If you thought the royal family had moved on from the Diana chapter, think again. Tonight we break down exactly what William said, why it hit so hard, and how Camilla's reaction had become the story no one in the palace wanted told. Let's set the scene. For more than 2 decades, the monarchy has carefully managed the memory of Diana, Princess of Wales. She remains the most famous royal of the modern era, the woman who humanized the institution, who walked through minefields, who held AIDS patients when others refused, who spoke about loneliness inside the palace walls long before it was fashionable. Her image still sells books, documentaries, and headlines. And for Camilla, every reminder of that legacy has always carried a complicated weight. Camilla Parker Bowles entered the public consciousness as the other woman. Fair or not, that label stuck for years. When she married Charles and later became Queen Consort, the institution worked overtime to present a new chapter: stability, duty, continuity. Diana's name was treated with careful distance in official settings. The message was clear. The past had been honored. The present must move forward. Then Prince William spoke. Sources close to the event describe a public appearance that was supposed to be routine. William was addressing a gathering connected to one of the charities and causes that still carry Diana's imprint: mental health, the well-being of young people, the kind of work his mother made her own. He did not simply mention her in passing. He did not offer the usual polite, measured tribute. According to multiple accounts circulating among those present, William looked straight into the moment and defended his mother's legacy with a clarity that left little room for reinterpretation. He spoke about the courage it took for Diana to challenge the stiff formality of the institution. He spoke about the empathy she showed when the cameras were off. He spoke about the way her example continues to shape how he and Catherine raise their own children, with openness, with emotional honesty, with a refusal to pretend that royal life is without pressure. And then came the line that changed the temperature in the room, a direct acknowledgement that Diana's legacy is not something to be managed or diluted. It is something to be protected. That single stance, public, unambiguous, delivered by the man who will one day sit on the throne, cut through years of carefully constructed narrative. Now picture Camilla receiving word of it. Those familiar with the private dynamics inside the royal household say the reaction was immediate and visceral. Queen Camilla, a woman known for her composure and dry humor, was described as being visibly shaken. Tears, not the theatrical kind, the kind that come when something long buried rises without warning. For Camilla, Diana is not an abstract historical figure. She is a woman whose life and death still define large parts of the public's emotional relationship with the monarchy. Every time William elevates his mother's memory in such personal terms, it reopens a chapter Camilla has spent years trying to close with dignity. This is not about hatred. It is about the impossible position Camilla has occupied since the 1990s. She has lived with the knowledge that millions of people still view her through the lens of Diana's pain. She has endured the documentaries, the books, the endless online commentary. She has stood beside Charles as he became king and accepted the title of Queen Consort, knowing that for a significant portion of the public the comparison will never fully fade. And now the heir to the throne, Diana's eldest son, has chosen to place his mother's legacy front and center once more, without softening the edges. Insiders suggest the tears were not simply sadness. There was frustration. There was a sudden recognition that no amount of time, no amount of loyal service, no amount of quiet endurance can fully erase the emotional hierarchy that still places Diana at the center of the family's most powerful stories. William's words did not attack Camilla. They did not need to. By elevating Diana so openly, they reminded everyone, including Camilla, who still holds the emotional high ground in the public imagination. Think about the optics. William is not a junior royal testing the waters. He is the Prince of Wales, the man preparing to lead the monarchy into the next generation. When he speaks about Diana, the institution listens. The media listens. The public listens. And Camilla, for all her current position, remains a living symbol of the complicated history that William's words inevitably reopen. Some close to the situation claim Camilla retreated briefly after hearing the full account of the speech. She is said to have needed time alone. Others describe a more composed public face followed by private moments of visible distress. Either way, the image of the Queen Consort in tears over a public defense of Diana's legacy is the kind of story that travels fast, and it has. What makes this moment different from previous tributes? Timing and tone. Previous mentions of Diana by William have often been carefully framed within the broader narrative of healing and moving forward. This time, according to those who heard it, the defense felt sharper, more protective, almost defiant. It was as if William was drawing a line. His mother's example is not up for negotiation. It is foundational to how he understands duty, compassion, and the modern role of the monarchy. For Camilla, that line lands differently. She has spent years demonstrating loyalty, supporting Charles through illness and transition, taking on public duties with a steady presence. She has largely avoided direct conflict with the Diana narrative, yet the public memory remains stubborn. Documentaries continue to surface. Anniversaries still generate headlines. And every time William or Harry speaks of their mother with raw affection, the old questions return. Harry, of course, has been far more explicit in recent years. His memoirs and interviews left little unsaid. William has traditionally been more restrained. That is why this latest public stance carries extra weight. When the more reserved son chooses to speak with such clarity, it signals that the legacy is not fading. It is being actively guarded. There is a deeper layer here that few want to discuss openly. The monarchy survives on continuity and carefully managed emotion. Diana represented disruption, glamour mixed with vulnerability, public adoration mixed with private turmoil. Camilla represents a different kind of survival, the long game, the quiet endurance, the acceptance of a complicated past. When William elevates Diana so forcefully, he is not only honoring his mother, he is also reinforcing a version of royal identity that still sits uneasily alongside the current Queen Consort story. Palace aides are reportedly working to contain the fallout. Statements of unity are being prepared. Private conversations are said to be underway, but the damage, if one can call it that, is already emotional rather than institutional. You cannot issue a press release that erases tears. You cannot schedule a photo opportunity that undoes the sting of hearing the heir publicly prioritize the memory of the woman whose shadow still falls across so many rooms in the palace. Some observers argue William's defense was overdue. They say Diana's sons have every right, indeed a duty, to keep her example alive, especially on issues of mental health and emotional openness that remain relevant. Others see the moment as unnecessarily painful for Camilla, a reminder that the institution's past continues to cast long shadows over those who must live with its consequences. What cannot be denied is a human cost. Behind the titles and the protocol are people carrying decades of complicated feelings. Camilla's tears, if the reports are accurate, are a rare crack in a carefully maintained exterior. They reveal that even at this stage of life, even after becoming Queen Consort, the old wounds can still surface with startling force. And this is only the beginning of the story. Because what William said next, the specific words that reportedly left Camilla most shaken, and the private exchanges that followed inside the royal residences take this moment from emotional to potentially seismic. The full picture of how the future king is reshaping the narrative around his mother, and what that means to the woman standing beside the current king, is more layered than the initial headline suggests. We will unpack the exact nature of William's defense, the reaction from Charles, the quiet responses from within the household, and why some believe this public moment marks a permanent shift in how Diana's legacy will be handled going forward. But first, if this story has already moved you, if you believe the complicated truth of the royal family's past deserves to be told without filters, then make sure you are subscribed. Hit the like button. Turn on notifications. Because the next part of this story is where the real tension emerges. The palace may prefer silence. The public deserves a full account. Stay with me. According to those present and the accounts that have since filtered out, William did not limit himself to the usual warm reminiscence. He spoke of Diana as a woman who refused to be silenced by protocol. He described the way she used her platform to force uncomfortable conversations into the open, about loneliness, about the pressure of public life, about the human cost of maintaining an image. Then he made it personal. He said that the example she set still guides the decisions he makes as a father and as a future king. He stated, in essence, that her legacy is not a chapter to be closed. It is a standard that the monarchy must continue to meet. One particularly pointed passage, as reported, addressed the idea that time alone is enough to settle the past. William rejected that notion. He suggested that true progress requires acknowledging the full truth of what Diana endured and what she achieved, rather than smoothing the edges for present-day comfort. That single idea, that the institution still has work to do in living up to her example, landed like a quiet thunderclap. For Camilla, the implication was unmistakable. Every public elevation of Diana's courage and emotional honesty inevitably invites comparison, and comparison has always been the most painful terrain for the current queen consort. In the hours after the speech, the private reaction inside the royal residences is said to have been tense. Camilla, sources claim, needed space. The tears were not a fleeting moment of sentimentality. They reflected years of accumulated pressure, the knowledge that no matter how diligently she has performed her duties, no matter how steadily she has supported the king through illness and transition, the public's emotional allegiance still tilts toward the woman who is no longer here. William's words, delivered without apology, made that reality impossible to ignore. Charles' response, by contrast, is described as more measured and more complicated. The king has spent decades navigating the aftermath of his first marriage. He has spoken of regret. He has publicly honored Diana on significant anniversaries. Yet he has also built a life and a reign alongside Camilla. Those close to him suggest he understands both the necessity of William's tribute and the personal cost it carries for his wife. Private conversations are said to have taken place, quiet, careful, and incomplete. No one walks away from these moments fully resolved. The past does not negotiate. What makes this episode different from previous tributes is the clarity of William's stance. In earlier years, he has been more guarded, choosing language that balanced respect for his mother with loyalty to the institution as it exists today. This time the balance tipped. The defense felt protective, almost fierce. It signaled that the future king is prepared to keep Diana's memory active and unsoftened, even when it creates discomfort inside the family. Consider the wider implications. William and Catherine are raising the next generation of royals with an emphasis on emotional openness and mental health, themes Diana championed long before they became mainstream. By tying those values so explicitly to his mother's example, William is shaping the monarchy's future identity around her imprint. That choice has consequences for how Camilla's own contribution will be remembered. She has brought steadiness, loyalty, and a certain and showy resilience. Yet the public narrative still ranks emotional authenticity higher than quiet endurance, and Diana remains a gold standard for the former. Media coverage has been predictably divided. Some outlets frame William's words as a long overdue affirmation of a mother who changed the royal family forever. Others focus on the human cost of Camilla, portraying the moment as an unnecessary reopening of old wounds. Online, the conversation is sharper still. Supporters of Diana see validation. Supporters of Camilla see a painful reminder that forgiveness and acceptance remain incomplete in the public mind. The palace, as always, prefers silence. But silence cannot contain a story this charged. There is also the question of Harry. The younger brother has been far more explicit in recent years about the family's failures and the lasting impact of their mother's death. William's more restrained public style has often been contrasted with Harry's openness. This latest defense narrows that gap. It suggests that both sons, in their different ways, continue to measure the institution against the standard Diana set. For Camilla, that shared undercurrent is difficult to escape. Let us be clear about what this is not. This is not a simple story of villains and victims. Camilla did not invent the circumstances of the 1980s and 1990s. She has lived with the consequences for decades, often with considerable dignity under relentless scrutiny. William is not attacking her. He is defending the mother he lost and the values he believes still matter. Yet intention and impact are not the same thing. The impact on Camilla was real enough to produce tears. Those tears matter because they reveal something the institution rarely allows the public to see. The human beings behind the title still carry unresolved emotion. The monarchy project continuity and composure. Moments like this expose the cost of that projection. Camilla's distress, whether brief or lingering, is a reminder that history does not stay neatly in the past when the people who lived it are still present. Looking ahead, the question becomes how the family will manage attention. Will William continue to speak of Diana with the same directness? Will the palace attempt to reframe future tributes in safer language? Will Camilla find a way to absorb these moments without the same visible cost? There are no easy answers. The relationship between the current queen consort and the memory of the previous Princess of Wales has always been defined by impossibility. One woman's life ended in tragedy and myth. The other has spent a lifetime living in the aftermath. William's public defense forces the institution to confront that impossibility more openly than it prefers. It also forces the public to hold two truths at once: that Diana's legacy remains powerful and necessary, and that Camilla is a living person who continues to feel the weight of that legacy in ways most of us will never fully understand. This is why the story resonates so strongly. It is not merely royal gossip. It is a collision between memory and the present, between a son's loyalty and a wife's endurance, between the public's hunger for emotional truth and the palace's need for stability. When Prince William chooses to defend Diana's legacy without softening the edges, he is making a statement about the kind of monarchy he intends to lead. When Queen Camilla is left in tears by that statement, she is revealing the personal price of the history they all still inhabit. The coming months will show whether this moment fades into the constant stream of royal coverage or becomes a turning point in how the family discusses its most complicated chapter. For now, the image that lingers is simple and human. A queen consort confronted once again by the enduring power of a woman who is no longer here, and a future king unwilling to let that power diminish. If this account has given you a clearer sense of the emotional undercurrent still moving through the House of Windsor, then you already understand why these stories matter. The titles are public. The feelings remain private, until a single speech brings them into the light. Thank you for staying with this full examination. If you found value in hearing the complete picture, subscribe, like, and share so others can follow the ongoing story. The royal family rarely offers clean resolutions. What they do offer is a continuing human drama played out on the largest possible stage. We will keep watching. We will keep asking the questions the official statement preferred to leave unanswered. And we will return whenever the next chapter unfolds. Until then, stay informed. Stay curious, and never accept the polished version as a whole truth.